The Monday, March 30th, 2020 meeting of the Marquette City Commission is now called to order at 6 p.m. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Clerk, roll call, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Bonsall?
Here.
Commissioner Frazier?
Here.
Commissioner Schleichel?
Here.
Commissioner Stonehouse?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Hill?
Here.
And Mayor Smith?
Here. Commissioners, we have an agenda in front of us. Do we have a motion? And I would ask that commissioners raise your hand if you'd like to make a motion. Commissioner Stonehouse.
Your Honor, I motion to accept the agenda as written.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Commissioner Frazier.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say yes.
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 All opposed, please say no. Motion passes 6-0. Announcements. That brings us to announcements this evening, and I do have a few announcements. First off, an update on coronavirus. To this point, Marquette County has had 2 confirmed cases. The Stay Home, Stay Safe executive order by Gretchen Whitmer goes through at least April 13th. Please continue to abide by these important directives. I wanted to say thank you again to the City Commission and especially Mayor Pro Tem Hill for your continued patience and willingness to pitch in during my maternity leave. Mayor Pro Tem Hill has done an extraordinary job during my absence, and I can't thank you enough. I'm back in the fold sooner than I had planned, but let me just say, what a way to come back. Happy to report baby Clara is now 10 weeks old and doing well. I am a proud breastfeeding mom and wanted to give everyone a heads up that I need to take a break about every 3 hours. So if a meeting runs long, I will need to call a recess for about 20 minutes. For example, if this meeting goes much beyond 8:30, I will be calling a recess around that time. Glad to be back, and I'm up for the challenges we will surely face in the coming weeks and months. A note to commissioners during this meeting, please raise your hand, which I already mentioned, before speaking, and I will call on you so that we can avoid talking over one another. Finally, an update on election packets for the City Commission vacancies later this fall. Those will be available on April 1st. Packets can be completed online or mailed to your home address. The governor did sign an executive order extending the timeline to obtain signatures, but in these extraordinary circumstances, candidates may wish to consider paying the $100 fee to file instead. And at a later point in this meeting, we're going to be discussing to fill a vacancy. So at that point, I will call on the city clerk to clarify election versus a potential appointment or whatever process we decide in this meeting. Those are my announcements this evening. That brings us to public comment. Just to give a side note that here at City Hall, we have Sean Hobbins assisting me with managing public comments via phone and video this evening. So as we work through this, I ask everyone to have patience, and you may hear me conversing with him if we have any questions. Public comments may not exceed 3 minutes per person. Please clearly state your name and physical address when making public comments. Also, please note the commissioners cannot immediately respond to public comments. Our chance to do so is at the end of the meeting during commissioner comments. Anyone for public comment? Okay, we have some written comments this evening, so we're going to ask City Clerk to please read those for us to start things off.
Thank you. And bear with me here. I'm new to this public comment of the City Commission meeting, but I'll do my best. So these were submitted through the process that was established to the city manager's office via email. The first one is from Margaret Brum, 404 East Magnetic Street, and it states, Madam Mayor, Pro Tem, Commissioners, and City Manager, I'm very concerned about reports in the media and on Facebook about the new and improved Marquette Hospital. The reports that concern me about the new Marquette Hospital are, 1, that they have recently been laying off nurses, 2, refusing to supply nurses with the appropriate amount of PPE for their entire shift, and 3, not using trained personnel to evaluate people going to the hospital to facilitate those people who might have the COVID-19 virus from those people who do not. I'm also very concerned that I've not seen any public reporting about the total number of working ventilators in hospitals in the Upper Peninsula, starting with the hospital in Marquette. In order to make the best possible decisions for the health of myself and family members, I need to know whether the Marquette Hospital is adequately staffed, fully equipped, and has the right people in the right place at the right time to treat all people seeking medical treatment. I respectfully request that the mayor and city manager insist on a meeting with the director of the hospital and his staff to gain answers to these questions, and that those answers, specifically related to staffing, PPE availability, and the total number of working ventilators in the Marquette Hospital, be shared with the public ASAP. Very truly yours, Margaret Brum. And the second written comment is Frank Jeff Verito, 350 East Ridge in Marquette. These are my opinions. February 24th, Ms. Hill and Mr. Lawrence are introduced a conservation amendment for Heartwood. Their hearts were well placed in that they sought better protection for Heartwood, but their effort to enact what's best for us was premature. They lost sight of the public process. Mr. Lawrence referred to his motion as the beauty of the OMA. A more critical element of the OMA is the allowance for public participation. They motioned after our chance to comment had ended, even had they not stolen agenda comment time from us. Our commissioners apparently forgot that motions can be tabled for indefinite or definite periods to allow for contemplation and public comment. Mr. Schlegel and Stonehouse opposed the motion, quote, to give more time for thought and review, end quote. Although they didn't act concerned about the public aspect, their objection was correct, so long as the parcel wasn't immediately threatened. The public may note that this isn't the first time I sided with enemies over our better members. Unlike the way this board operates, my criticism isn't based on who's who, but on the validity of what's said and the public impact. We'll likely favor the motion once it's detailed in an agenda supplement and we're allowed to comment. This begs the question, why isn't it on tonight's agenda? We've had 5 weeks. Suddenly, our second best member is gone over an item that isn't even on this board's docket. He had a responsibility to us. People who haven't the stamina to stick with their commitments are asked not to run. We all face mental health challenges, especially lately. My dad often said, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. Now that I've called out 2 members who display some semblance of environmental and public sensitivity, Mr. Frazier may say, see, he criticizes everyone. The fact is, no one performs perfectly for 3 years. Even best friends can disagree, and I comment accordingly. Of concern is that Mr. Schlegel and Stonehouse assumingly wanted more time to review the amendment for themselves with no mention of our public. They gave complete credit for the preservation of the 578 acres to the leadership of the city staff, and many commissioners, end quote. They offered the public no credit after some of us fought tooth and nail for conservation from the day we purchased the property. How many times was this board reminded that of the 2,373 acres, only 256 were slated for development according to the original city news release? This board answered by loading an ad hoc committee with the 2 biggest developers in town. The committee obviously recommended far too much development on property that we purchased for all people and for our region's economic vitality. More recently, our officials speak more like residents who recommended conserving the remaining 2,117 acres. Please be honest and give the public its due credit for helping to instill this philosophy into the powers at be. And that is all the public comment I have.
Mayor, there's only one person waiting for comment, it's Aaron Andrews, and we'll let him do the.
Okay, we have one additional person waiting to do comment at this point. We're waiting to get that loaded.
He should be able to connect now, so. I can't tell.
Aaron, are you there?
I'm here. I was just listening in.
Oh, okay. Would you like to have any comment at this point?
No.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to confirm with Sean, do we have anyone else for public comment?
No, that's it.
Okay, seeing no further public comment is now closed. Brings us to item number 1 on our agenda, remote meeting format. So due to extraordinary circumstances, we are conducting our meeting tonight via video conferencing in order to practice social distancing. We had some conversation as a commission prior to this meeting about making a motion at this meeting to allow this meeting and future meetings to be conducted in this way, and furthermore to bring such changes in meeting format to the commission for approval in advance whenever possible. So I'm wondering if we have a commissioner who would like to make a motion, something along those lines, and I'm happy to help with that if needed. Commissioner Stonehouse.
Your Honor, I would motion that, I'm trying to build a motion here, but I think I would motion that the city commission be given the city commission has the responsibility. I would motion that the city commission make the decision when and if any meeting is held out of the chambers of City Hall.
Could you repeat that, please? I'm sorry.
I would motion that the city commission make the decision whenever a meeting is held outside of the confines of City Hall and whenever the characteristics of a traditional meeting change.
Understood. Do we have a second for that motion? Thank you, Commissioner Stonehouse. Commissioner Schlegel.
I second the motion. Thanks, Fred.
Okay. Any discussion on that motion?
Well, I think the discussion I would make or the comments I would make regarding it is just the idea that times are changing and they're moving rapidly and we need to rapidly move and adapt to them. The governor has given us the ability to do something we've talked about for a long time, which is do virtual meetings. And that's being done under the current state of emergency in Michigan. But we should have that procedure laid out within either our rules to the commission or within the charter when we get to the point of adjusting the charter. In the meantime, we can do it by commission rules so that when the opportunity comes up, when the necessity comes up that we no longer be in chambers for public safety, that the commission then takes that responsibility on to say, yes, we will move, we will go to an alternate location, and we may use virtual software, et cetera, to be able to make that work. And I think that's a good way of keeping the commission involved and cognizant of whatever threat scenario we may be in.
Thank you, Commissioner Stonehouse. Commissioner Schlegel, did you have any comments?
Nothing further.
Okay, any other commissioner have a comment?
I suppose I have a question.
Sure, go ahead, Commissioner Bonsall.
Thank you. I'm curious, Commissioner Stonehouse. So do you, maybe I don't understand the motion entirely. Are you saying that we should hold a vote before we move back to a regular meeting format, or that we have a vote before each meeting where we have an irregular meeting format like this one, or not meeting at City Hall or something like that?
My apologies for not being clear. My intention to the motion is that only when we move out of commission chambers. In other words, if we're doing a normal meeting, as we have been doing for 140 odd years, then we do nothing. But if we have to move out of chambers for any reason to any other location or any other technology or methodology, then the city commission needs to make that decision. We don't leave it to city staff, we don't leave it to somebody else, we just go ahead and we as a commission do that. If we have to do it by Survey Monkey because something is happening quickly, we do it by Survey Monkey.
Mayor Pro Tem Hill? Oh, and she's on mute, so hold on. You'll have to repeat in just a second, Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Commissioner Stonehouse added in my question, and Commissioner Bonsall had asked it, which is what would be the process? And if we, like in this situation where we didn't have time because the executive order came out between meetings, allowing there to be a poll done or a survey done, and then I would be comfortable with a motion if it could be amended to indicate some process.
Right, and I would certainly accept that, a process in place, whether it's a survey motion, whether it's contact each commissioner to get their approval.
I'd just like to confirm with City Clerk at this point that you have all that. And he's on mute, so hold on, Kyle. Okay,
I
go
had
ahead.
it.
He does.
Yes, I believe
Okay.
I do have that.
So commissioners, do we have a motion on the amendment? I need someone to raise their hand, please, or not. Mayor Pro Tem Hill? And you're on mute. Looks like you muted
Yes.
yourself.
Yeah, I'll stop muting myself. I was wondering if I guess we'd have to amend the motion, I guess is what you're saying.
Yes, I'm making,
Can I,
Commissioner Stone has suggested what the amendment will be. I guess that's probably the motion, so I need a second. I'm sorry about that.
so I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Hill. So back to the original motion. Any further discussion? We have to vote on the amendment. We have to vote on the amendment, right?
Right.
Okay, so voting on the amendment, all in favor, please signify by saying yes.
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 Any opposed, signify by saying no. Motion passes 6-0. That's for the amendment to the original motion. Now voting on the first motion. All in favor, please signify by saying yes.
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 Any opposed, say no. Passes 6-0. All right, we got. Okay, moving on to consent agenda. Commissioners, do we have a motion? And please signify by raising your hand if you'd like to make a motion. Commissioner Bonzel.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as written.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Commissioner Schlegel.
Second the motion.
Thank you. Any discussion, commissioners?
No.
Hearing none, all in favor, please say yes.
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 Yeah.
All opposed, please say no. Motion passes 6-0. Moving on to unfinished business, item number 3, Founders Pile Reuse, approval of revised design. City Clerk, could we please have the background?
Thank you, Mayor. The brownfield plan for Founders Landing contemplated various public improvements eligible for reimbursement under the plan, including pier redevelopment. The project area is located on Lake Superior, east of and adjacent to the Founders Landing development and south of the Lower Harbor Ore Dock. The north set of piles are directly east of Barriga Street, and the south set of piles are east of the Hampton Inn. GEI Consultants of Marquette was contracted to conduct a feasibility study in August of 2018 and found reuse of the piles as 2 public piers to be feasible. The City Commission held a work session on the subject in April of 2019, where GEI presented the pier concepts and findings of its feasibility study. At its March 4th, 2019 regular meeting, the City Commission approved GEI Consultants for the preliminary design phase for the Founders Landing Pier project. Since that time, the public has had opportunities to comment on the ongoing design at the Harbor Advisory Committee, Arts and Culture Advisory Committee, Marquette Public Art Commission, Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, and through community input surveys. A work session with the City Commission, GEI Consultants, and the DeRocher Marine Division of Kokosing Industrial was held on May 22nd, 2019, where the preliminary design and budget was presented. Out of that session, there was a consensus that costs could be reduced if the southern pier were to be shortened by 1 section and the construction timeline were to be extended over 2 seasons. The project stalled when the Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, EGLE, denied the permit for the design of the North Pier. Reasons stated for that denial centered mostly around littoral flow and filling the bottomlands along the entire length of the pier. A work session between the City Commission and GEI Consultants was held on December 18th, 2019 to discuss further design options that might meet EGLE's requirements. Since last year, GEI and city staff have met with EGLE and have been working toward a solution. GEI met with EGLE last month with the proposed design changes, and they indicated the design would most likely be permitted. EGLE requested the city not use tires in Lake Superior, and GEI then changed the design to incorporate a buoy wave attenuation system made by Wave Eater. At the February 24th, 2020 Commission meeting, the revised design was approved and subsequently submitted to EGLE for approval. EGLE then denied this design based on issues raised by their Bottomlands division. They stated that use of the water in front of Dockside Marine infringed upon Dockside's bottomland rights. GEI again went back to the drawing board and has come up with a design that basically switches the 2 piers. The more basic boardwalk design that was the south pier would become the north. This pier would maintain some of the original feel of the north as you access the dock from the existing boardwalk, but then transition into a boardwalk style pier leading to a wide open platform at the east end. The area over the existing cribbing would still be filled and the kayak launch would remain on this pier, accessed off the existing cement bulkhead and launching kayaks directly east within the bottomland adjacent to city-owned property. The ADA water viewing window would be incorporated at the east end of this north dock. The south pier would be open near shore with the Wave Eater wave attenuation system to allow littoral flow and then be filled on the east end. All motorized temporary boat mooring docks would be on the south pier, as would any sunshades. Total cost of this new design, including both piers, is estimated to be $7,122,000 for construction by Kokosing Industrial and $225,000 for final design and construction oversight by GEI Consultants. GEI has several options for deductions that would bring construction closer to the original $5,670,000. Fiscal effect: adequate funding has been allocated through the Founders Landing Brownfield TIF plan. Recommendation: approve the revised design and authorize the city manager or his designee to resubmit the permit to the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Thank you, City Clerk. So we do have George Meister with GEI Consultants here to provide us with information on this topic. George, I wanted to say thank you for being here, and I was hoping that you could please go ahead with your presentation. And I know we've got to get it up and running here, so bear with us.
Sure.
Thank you, Sean. I think we're ready to roll. Okay, go ahead, George. Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot. Apologize if there's any noise in the background. I got a pile of kids and I'm holed up in the basement here to try to hide from them. I don't know if Sean, if you're able to let me take control of the screen to kind of point at things or not.
I don't think it's gonna let you do that.
Sean is saying he's not sure. He doesn't think that
Okay.
will.
Oh, wait,
He's
here.
looking at some options. Hold tight. Is that you pointing, George? Is that you moving the mouse?
It might be. Yep, it is. Okay. Yeah, I think it is here.
Perfect. You figured it out.
Alright.
Thank you.
So, let me just see if one of these might make it go full screen, but either way. So anyway, yeah, as you'd heard, we've gone through quite a process here trying to get something that met the goals that we've all been looking for and working towards, but then also was permittable. So we've reached that, I think. We did meet with the couple of folks from Eagle who are responsible for permitting on their side, and they expressed, or our understanding is that they expressed that they find our current layout plans and everything acceptable. So we're working through a couple little clarifications, and we should be able to move on with that and have a project that's hopefully buildable yet in the not too distant future. I should note that after Eagle approves it, it does still have to go to the Army Corps for their approval. Generally, we find that the Corps kind of follows suit with the state, but that is still another bit that we'll have to see how that goes, but hopefully it bodes well here with everything that's been addressed so far. So on the screen here, as a refresher, you can see the existing conditions out there that you've all seen a dozen times or more from me presenting them to you, not let alone when you've looked at the plans. So let's see. So here is the proposed Plan A. This is what we pitched to Eagle as we talk through this final permitting process. And the reason that it has a bigger price tag is obviously we made some switches and some changes pretty quickly to try to find something that worked, but it's also a lot easier to pare things out of the project than to add them in once that permit is in place. So our understanding is that as it sits right now, it should be permitted, or we're expecting that it will be. However, given the current price tag, or what our cost opinion is of this project, expecting you might want to pare some things out of it. So that shouldn't be a problem, as I've talked to the folks at Eagle. You know, so long as we're minimizing and reducing those impacts, it shouldn't be an issue. So we can look at this so you can see what's going on. But from a high level here, you can see this is pretty close to what used to be the north down here. So this, for the most part, used to sit up here. This crib structure here, we were using as a, we were going to fill that and have kind of a nice big area up here. That on the north, where the north dock is now, we're allowing that opening that was important to Eagle. We're providing some pile supported decking over that to allow for water movement and such through there. Then from this point on, actually, it's a little hard to see from the screen here, but from this point on, it'll be the breakwater as you've seen it before, that rubble mound berm. And then there's the decking running along this side, the north side. That is also a larger boats could come and moor up here broadside. There's still the floating dock down below that has some room for some broadside dockage or expansion of the finger piers. There's still a couple finger piers here. There'd be a gangway coming from this boardwalk below up to the upper deck elevation here. And this would all tie in to the existing decking up here. Down at the bottom, at the east end, we'd have that second set of decking that's still shown that had those sails on it before, the shade structures. So much of it is essentially the same. What we did have to make a couple compromises with Eagle on the project. One of them happened a while ago was the narrowing of the top of this berm. So some of the features that we'd originally shown, we're gonna have to try to see how that all fits in there again, because this is gonna be 25 feet wide on top now as opposed to the 33 it was previously. So some of that meandering path and landscaping might have to change a bit through here or be minimized or eliminated in some areas. That's this is pretty close to what it was previously. The length is currently still the same. 150-foot opening here for that open water. One thing worth noting is that on this south dock, we did keep the same rotation we had on this northern one. And so what you'll see that actually does is it veers away from the pile field. So this is the pile field outline down here. And the reason we did that was so that we could still get some wave breaking action and get some calm area back behind this when we get those southerly waves or southern southeasterly winds. If we had it pointed down this angle, it didn't really provide any protection, so it didn't give much purpose to having the dock in the breakwater there. So we did turn this a bit, so these piles that you see in these pile clusters would still be here veering off slightly southerly. On the north side, we've currently maintained this kind of cul-de-sac drop-off area. We kept the accessible kayak launch here. We oriented it a little bit differently so that the access to that, you'd come off just like you did down to that concrete pile cap that's currently there. You'd follow that to the gangway just like before. Although this time, at this point, we've got that turned to the east or southeasterly so that when you come in and you'll bring your kayak straight in, set it right down, be able to get in. And then the idea being that when they launch, they can kind of follow this, what would be a bottomlands conveyance line through here to come out. There's one pile cluster right here that would have to be removed, but then on the flip side, we can keep a couple of these other ones that were through here. So I'm gonna go ahead and I think I've got a couple closer views here. Actually, it's probably been a little better one to talk over. So here you can see a little bit closer here that kayak launch and the gangway, and this setup is pretty much the same as that big crib structure that's out there that when you look, you'll see the rocks and concrete, some trees and brush and such growing on it. So that is just like before, we're planning to fill that up to the same elevation as the decking here. You still get that space. The idea right now is, we don't have it shown at this point, but the idea right now is that we try to provide something similar to what was there before with kind of a mixture of maybe a handful of plantings, some seating for folks that require accessible and those that don't, maybe some hardscaped areas in here for some different seating and whatnot, however it might be used. And then we've got this, the walkway coming down to what's being called the fishing platform. And you can see it still does have that viewing window here, look down below at the pile. So this one is still following the same as the original pile field. A little bit more use out of where this previously was just the boardwalk. Now you also do get some, there's a little bit more being built off there right now. And then this side pretty close to the same. So I don't know if you want to stay on looking at this page much, but there are some cross sections here to help clarify what some of these different areas would look like. And I think if you have questions that are specific on them, we can try to go through them, but I think otherwise I'll skip this sheet for now, but I wanted it available just in case you were needing clarification on how those two different structures were laid out.
And George,
So-
I just wanted to point out for our commissioners that after your presentation, I was hoping that maybe a commissioner might make a motion to suspend the rules so we can have a little bit of discussion. So I just wanted to put that in our commissioners' minds. You can keep going for now, and then we can have a discussion in a moment here.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
So moving on, we've looked at how can we bring this back down towards the original budget. What I showed on here doesn't bring it quite all the way there, but we can get it there. So I should note that these numbers that are kind of running through here and that I'll be providing are not fully vetted through the contractor and all of that, but I did use their pricing to try to take a better stab at getting this to where I expect these changes would go. So to start, if we look at the north dock, what I looked at doing was right now we have this decking that runs parallel along the side of that filled crib structure. I have that being eliminated. And then the rest of the decking down here, originally when it was on the south dock, it was only 8 feet wide. When we moved it up here, not knowing how everything would shake out, we put it to 16 foot wide. So now I've got it marked down to being 8 feet wide. This red line coming down the side here showing that narrowing. I also took at if we were to take a 5 foot distance all off the perimeter around this, shorten that all up by 5 feet. And then one final thing was I cut out 115 feet of this, which would end up bringing this back. There should be a drawing on here. There might be a drawing on here that shows the kind of what that final condition looks like. But what you end up with is this filled crib structure, the accessible launch, and then a straight 8 foot walkway that would come out and end about in here somewhere, as opposed to all the way down here. On the south dock, took a look at a couple things. One of the things we did was we took this 33 foot wide decking that we've been using the whole time, and I narrowed that up by 3 feet to make it an even 30. I did the same on this side. Minimal change there, but the square footage over the full length does help a bit. I also took this section of decking that we added on over that gap that extended the berm here, basically. Took and got rid of that. So now you would have this narrow piece of decking, then it would widen out here once you got onto the berm. So those changes, the anticipated costs end up coming in at around 6.1 million, which still puts us a bit over. There are some things that, actually, let me get to the next slide here. It summarizes them a bit. So here's on the north dock and south dock, a summary of anticipated cost savings. Again, these are preliminary numbers at this point, but they're in the ballpark to at least see where we'd end up. So this, starting at that 7.1 or $2 million number, this is what brings us down to about that 6.1. We go to the next page, you can see the what that would end up looking like after. And I believe the next 2 pages, here we go. This is what the north dock would look like. So it takes off along this side, narrows this up to just being an 8 foot walkway and a little smaller fishing pier. It also would have a flat top on this crib structure with sloped sides on all sides of it here, north and south. Get on to the south one. Something that looks like this. This arc right here is that wave eater structure or the wave eater product that will help to dampen the waves. Some of those smaller short period waves will be coming through here. So now you'd have this tying into the deck structure up here. You'd have a 30 foot wide deck that came all the way down here. Here's the berm, additional decking down here, and the shade structures we've looked at in the past. And then we still have the same floating dock over here. So run up here. This is that over. So a couple of things that we can do that are easy at this point to shave significant dollar amounts is the easiest thing is about every 25 feet or so that we take out of this should add up to roughly $100,000. So again, those are really rough number, but it's something for discussion purposes anyway. So we can, if we wanted to bring that down further, if we took 100 feet out of this, that'd be, dollars or so, or $250,000 or 400,000 to $500,000 in savings, which would bring us back down to that original budget number. So me just does back up to this one for now, and then I will think Sean, if you want to take back over, and then you can move it along as discussion warrants. That's what I have.
Thank you, George. Commissioners, do we have a motion to suspend the rules? Commissioner Bonsall?
I move that we suspend the rules.
Second? Anyone have a second? Mayor Pro Tem Hill?
I second that motion.
Thank you. And all in favor of suspending the rules,
I,
please signify by saying yes.
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 Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Okay, so we voted on this 2 times already. This is the 3rd time, right? So
Yes.
we may have some questions. I noticed that this is a more expensive plan than one that I had seen in the past. So my first question, I'm going to take the prerogative as mayor to ask our CFO Gary here, if we wanted to go with Plan A, to explain how and why we may have the funds to do so. Before we get into why we should do one or the other, I think that's an important question. And he's here on the speakerphone. He's kind of here. I can move my video so y'all can see him.
Hi, hopefully everybody can hear me. So just like the mayor, I just kind of got hit up a few minutes before the meeting that this is going to be a lot more expensive than what we were thinking. We need to come in as close to the original budget as possible. That's where we were running the numbers. We'd have to run new numbers, for this new set, and I have no idea where that would come in at. Another issue, but we could overcome it, is this would actually be a brownfield bond. So the brownfield has already passed the resolutions needed to issue the bonds, and the city has already given us full faith and credit. Now that doesn't mean we couldn't, redo the resolutions. We would just have to go through the whole process again. But it's my recommendation at this time to try as best as we can to come in under at least close to the original budget for this item.
That helps immensely. Thank you, Gary. Okay, so that being said, I think it's a good time that we start some discussion here. By show of hands, Commissioner Bonsall, you want to start us off?
Sure. Thank you. Gary, I'm just curious, could you just remind us all what exactly the original budget was?
Yeah, it was, thank you, Mike, because my mind went blank, but it was around $5.6 million.
Thank you. That's what I thought. And I was curious, I suppose whoever is qualified to answer this question, please feel free to go ahead. So in the Plan B preliminary budget savings slide in the GEI presentation, decreasing the deck widths from 33 feet to 30 feet for the south dock saved us $150,000, which is pretty substantial. In my mind, if we reduced the dock widths by an additional 3 feet on either side, it wouldn't have a significant impact on how it would feel as a member of the public who is using that facility. And I'm just curious if we could save a similar amount of money by doing that, as opposed to shortening the dock, or maybe in addition to shortening the dock.
I would think that George with GEI would be qualified to answer that question, so I'm not sure if you're still on.
Yep.
Go ahead.
I'm here. Yeah, you can expect that to a point. As you start getting smaller and smaller, those cost efficiencies and such change. So long as we're talking in a small amount relative to the whole, I think you get roughly that same amount.
Okay. Would you recommend that? I suppose is what I'm...
Oh, I don't think there's any problem with it. I think it's just a matter of the commission trying to visualize what that final product is. And there's a balance point between where you have kind of the wide deck and it's a nice area to go out to and be on, and there's room for doing everything you might want to do. And somewhere there's that tipping point of where it becomes a narrow walkway. So either or is right and good, just whatever the commission wants that to be.
Mayor Pro Tem Hill?
Could I maybe ask you to put it in context by comparing it to the existing boardwalk? I don't know if you or Commissioner Schlegel might have, I know, Paul, you were very involved in that. Can you speak to the size of the existing? It looks to me like, in terms of length, just to give us a visual, it's the existing boardwalk there in front of the Hampton and the one Marquette Place is going to be roughly the same length as the proposed new South Dock. And then I wondered about the width, if they are, again, looking at the drawing, they look to be approximately the same.
Yeah, I think the boardwalk there, just looking at kind of the scale here in the drawings, it looks like it might be roughly 20 feet wide. I'd say the length is somewhere in the ballpark there.
So, yeah, and so that helps me. And then how would you compare 8 feet to a sidewalk? I'm trying to remember what a sidewalk is.
Your average city sidewalk is 5 feet.
Thank you.
Yep. And a bike path is often 8 feet. So if you went down the bike path along US 41 from the Welcome Center to town, that's typically going to be an 8 foot wide.
Thanks. That provides really good perspective.
Thanks. Any other commissioners for comments or questions? Commissioner Schlegel? Sorry, I didn't see you.
Thanks, George. I'm wondering, was the original width, whether it be 30 or 33 feet, was it being dictated by the existing piles? That's how wide the piles are that are out there right now?
Yeah, so there were two things that we were looking at there. One was trying to roughly match that pile field. The second one was based on the structural design, the 33-foot span gave us our optimal steel spacing for the different size headers and such we were using. So we're just maxing that out to get the most width for the dollars of steel spent in the piles.
Okay. So, and would there be, because I was thinking the same thing, if we had to do anything, it would be nice to bring it down even to say 20 feet or 25, depending on where we had to go to achieve that dollar amount that's going to get us back to the original asking point there. But I guess would it be a disadvantage to make it as narrow as 20 feet because of the way that the piles are situated? Would it be would there be some reason not to go even down to like 20 feet?
Under the original design, that would have been more difficult. On this one, because we are heading, we kind of veer off at an angle north of that south dock from the pile field. It doesn't have us restricted by the piles that are there. They're going to end up being south of the project. So you could do that.
Okay. I was a part of building the original, boardwalk that's down there. Personally, I mean, 20 feet, 30 feet is great. Don't get me wrong. I'd love to be able to keep that. But if we can look at a real easy fix by bringing it down to 20 or 25 feet, whatever would be best for from the engineering standpoint, and save that money, I think that would be, pretty easy fix for us. Without having to lose any of the length on the boardwalk, correct?
No, that's all. Those costs are still left as they were.
Okay.
Commissioner Stonehouse, did you have some comments or questions?
Well, the only comment I had was that I think it's extraordinarily important that we stay as close as we can to the 5.6. And I say that without due regard to any of the aesthetics of construction, but that we do have heavy financial commitments coming up in the next several years. And, for example, what we do with the relocation of Lakeshore Boulevard, the grants and our match money for those. And we certainly have a time of uncertainty with whatever's happening with the current virus situation. So I would be very reluctant to commit any additional funding to it beyond what we have set up right now with the brownfield to be able to operate with. That's my opinion. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Commissioner Stonehouse. And George, I have a question. So it looks like option B is 6.1 million. Is that correct?
Roughly, yeah.
Do we have the ability to get back to the 5.6 million at this point with all the changes we've had to make?
Yep. So what I was just looking at is taking into account Commissioner Schlegel's comments. If we were to reduce the width of that decking to about 20 feet, I would expect we'd be looking at taking another roughly $400,000 off. Again, I'm kind of going off the cuff here, but that could be expected. And then I think if we're looking for another, 100 or two, the easiest way to do that would be maybe taking 50 feet of length out of the berm area there, which would also shorten up some of the decking too. So maybe if
And
we
you're
took out
you're talking about the north pier or the south pier?
the south one.
Oh, thank
So
you.
if we took 40 or 50 feet out of that, that would save probably a couple $100,000 as well.
Mayor Pro Tem Hill?
Thank you for all this on the cuff, and I appreciate the work we're doing. And I echo the comments that we want to bring this price down particularly at this time. And I had, when I thought about, I know this has been said before because we have worked on this for a number of years, but if we could please have a review of how this money is coming from brownfields and not coming from the general fund, so that just to be absolutely clear about where this money would come from and where it's been committed to, that this money has been committed and allocated to. I think that would be helpful to understand what we're voting on.
Thank you. We've got City Manager ready to answer that question.
Thank you. Just a brief history again. The effort to reuse these pilings was required of us as part of our acquisition of the whole South Rail Yard, the whole Founders Landing area. So we were obligated by a contract with at the time, the DNR or DEQ to reuse or to remove these pilings. A few years ago, we did a feasibility study, or actually George did it with GEI, that the reuse of the pilings was an option, and then the commission decided that it was the preferred option as opposed to removing the pilings. As part of the original brownfield plan, when Founders Landing was first developed, that plan called for a marina to be built adjacent to or in conjunction with the whole development down there. That was staying in line with the requirement or desire that there be a public benefit to every brownfield plan that we approved. As time went on, and well, let me take a step back. At that time, there was about $6 million set aside in that brownfield plan for a marina. As time went on, it became obvious in a couple of ways that I didn't think, and I don't believe the commission, we needed a third marina in Marquette. It became obvious to me that the cost of the marina would exceed what the brownfield plan allotted. So we then opted for the boardwalks or the fishing piers or the reuse of the pilings in the fashion that you're looking at today. The total cost will be paid through the brownfield plan. In other words, the taxes that are generated by all of the developments in the Founders Landing area will go towards paying for this project. Now, we as a city, we front the money. We pay for the original construction of the reuse, and then we are reimbursed through the taxation to the developments that are down there, which is one of the reasons why we've been pushing for that area to be developed, sold and developed, to both get us out from underneath the debt of Founders Landing and to contribute towards this public improvement. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. I know it's been said many times, many ways, but I really appreciate just reiterating again the connections here. I did, but it also, now that we've made, this is a question for George Meister. Now that we've made these shorter, are we going to be leaving piers out, which I personally, I kind of like how it looks and wouldn't mind having them there. I'll state that up front. But under this agreement with the state, do we have to still take them out?
So in our discussions with them, there hasn't been any talk of removing them with part of this project. In fact, it almost sounds like the impression I got the last time we talked to them was that it'd be better to leave them there. But I certainly don't want to speak for them. So on the north dock, that one will be running right down the center of the pile field, just like it was when it was in the southern location. So you'll see the piles all around it. The southern dock, as it's shown now with the breakwater and such down there, it'll start out over top of the pile field, and then as you progress down it into the lake, it'll veer to the north, and that the pile field will actually, if you look on that plan view, I'm not sure if any of you can see it or have it printed or anything. You can see the outline of the pile field, and it says DSSNA or dock number 1 piles limits. So it'll actually be, about the time you get about a quarter of the way down, the pile field will be fully shown. It's still there out in the water, but south of it, south of the new project.
I think that would be cool to have that all around you and you're walking out among them. So I applaud that.
Commissioners, do we have any further discussion or questions before? Okay, Commissioner Schlegel.
George, one more quick one in regards to Eagle then. Something that it seems pretty simple as far as condensing making the deck smaller than 30 feet. Is there any foreseeable issue with conversations that you've had with Eagle that
No,
doing something like that?
Anything we do to reduce it is all the better. So if anything we take back or take down in size is better. The way we have the bottomlands conveyance shown now and the way we've discussed it with Eagle this last go through here, it actually encompasses that whole area. So instead of going around each dock individually, now we just have one bottomlands conveyance. So we can kind of change and alter within that, and that doesn't have any impact either on what we're doing.
Commissioner Frazier, did you have a comment?
As I say, I like the layout a lot better than the other layout, I think. And the way that people can walk right out to the dock, do everything and come back, it's a good layout. And I like the boat traffic over to the east side. I like that better, the good layout.
Great. So I'm sensing a kind of a consensus to be budget friendly here. I notice the motion doesn't have the budget amount in it. Do we need to include that budget amount if we wish to do so in our motion? I'm looking around here.
I think we understand that. You still have to, well.
Yeah, we still have to make a motion. Okay. Do we have a motion, Commissioner? Commissioner Schlegel.
Try and do this.
Yeah.
Approve. I'd make a motion that we would approve the revised design and authorize the city manager or his designee to resubmit the permit to the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, and to maintain the budget for the entire project to not exceed $5.7 million. I don't know if you want to say to not exceed or to be as close to 5.7 or the original budget as possible. Is that okay?
I'm looking at Gary and maybe at Kyle for some clarification on how we should word that.
Well, the original budget was.
Gary's coming back over.
Yeah, sorry.
To stay within the original budget parameters?
Yeah, I think if you say that, because the original budget, according to the number Mike had, is $5.6 million.
5.67.
Yeah, 5.67, so it is close to 5.7. If you kind of stay within that range, I think we would be safe. I mean, we'd still have to run numbers, but originally, a year or so ago when we were doing this, that's what we were running the numbers on, and so that's what I know. So.
How about if we say not to exceed 5.7?
Yeah, that works for me. That I'm not sure if that gives George and John any wiggle room at all, but that certainly works for me. So.
Okay, thank you, Gary. Thank you, Commissioner Schlegel. Do we have a second? Commissioner Frazier.
Second.
Don't we have to, excuse me, Madam Mayor, but don't we have to go, have we unsuspended the rules? If we're going to be having a vote, making a motion, don't we have to do that?
No.
No, I don't think we have to have another vote to unsuspend the rules.
No.
Okay, sorry.
If we do, I've never done it before, so. Okay, so we're rolling here. We have a motion, we have a second. And Commissioner Schlegel, any additional discussion on the motion that you made?
All I know is that it's been a long road for this project. And I think that the intention of it to give the lakeshore access to the public is just a very, gracious act that was taken into consideration when this brownfield was being developed. So I'm really pleased with that. And I really think that GEI, George, you guys really deserve a lot of credit to get this to work with the Eagle parameters that they've really tightened down on you for a long period of time to get this thing passed. So I just thanks for all your hard work with that.
Thank you. And Commissioner Frazier, any additional comments?
Cost us money to remove the pilings, or cost us money to reuse them? As we reuse them for city purposes, that's a good idea.
Any other comments by the commission? Commissioner Stonehouse.
Well, I only wanted to say that this is another example, I think, of how the city is working very hard to extend and expand the lakeshore that we have so that everybody has an opportunity to benefit really from the city being right on the shores of Lake Superior. This is a great project. It's been a great one for a long time. And certainly George and his folks have been a terrific partner with the city in trying to make it work. So my heart goes out to them, my greatest commendation, and I look forward to it finally being built. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Bonzo.
Thank you. I just want to reiterate what's already been said and also thank city staff and GEI for all of their hard work on this. I think that it absolutely makes sense to go forward with this project, especially with Commissioner Schlegel's motion that we not exceed $5.7 million as originally budgeted. And I think it's going to, as Commissioner Stonehouse said, it's going to actually enhance public access to the lake. It's going to be a great community asset. And it certainly makes a lot more sense in the long term for us to do this as opposed to dumping millions of dollars into the lake to remove the pilings. So I absolutely appreciate all the hard work, and I'll be voting in favor of this.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Hill?
Yeah, and agreed with all the above. I just also want to reiterate in terms of priorities, the kayak and canoe launch and making that handicapped accessible, but to have that safe, quiet sports launch into the protected harbor area is a real priority for me. And I'm glad to see that we've been able to keep that all the way through. And I think bringing the decking and piers down to the scale of roughly what's there, I think it's still going to look great and still have some wonderful views. And Commissioner Stonehouse, you can ride in my canoe out to Ripley's Rock if you'd like, rather than be able to. I know you wanted to walk out there, but I'd happy to give you a ride.
That's why God made a jet ski. But thank you for the
Thank you. I don't have anything to say that hasn't been said already, but I just wanted to say that I'm hopeful this is the last approval that we're going to need to get this through, and we can get started on this soon. Thank you to GEI and to George and to city staff for continuing to push on this.
Could I make one?
Yeah, city manager would like to make a comment here.
Just want to remind everybody that we already have a approved the contractor for this, which is proposing. So we're a little backwards. I mean, we approved them for the first design, and then when that didn't pass permitting, they're still on the contract to do this. So you probably will not see this come before you again unless we have to redesign it one more time. So you won't see an action item to actually approve the contractor.
Thank you. All right, hearing no further discussion, all in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, please say no. Motion passes 6-0. Moving on to new business. Item number 4, Marquette Moment. City Clerk, could we please have the background?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. There is no background, but I will.
Oh, I'm sorry. Would you mind to please read the proclamation for us? I didn't say that.
Absolutely. So the proclamation titled Marquette Moment. Whereas the citizens of Marquette, along with the rest of Michigan, are facing an extraordinary time of disruption to their daily lives and routines due to the COVID-19 outbreak and the Stay Home, Stay Safe Executive Order number 2020-21. And whereas, in addition to physical health, the mental and emotional well-being of Marquette is of paramount importance to the City Commission and the community. And whereas the mayor and city commission feel it is important that the city provide an outlet where residents and families can provide comfort and safely interact with each other. Now, therefore, I, Jennifer A. Smith, Mayor of Marquette, do hereby proclaim the start of the Marquette Moment Community Initiative, where every evening at 6:30 p.m., residents and families are encouraged to come out of their homes, wave to neighbors, visually check in with each other, and generally provide comfort and safely interact with each other within the guidelines of proper social distancing. Dated this 30th day of March, 2020, signed Jennifer A. Smith, Mayor of Marquette.
Thank you, City Clerk. Commissioners, do we have a motion to get this proclamation on the books? Commissioner Bonzo.
I move that we accept this proclamation by Mayor Smith as written.
Do we have a second? Commissioner Stonehouse.
I support the motion, Your Honor.
Thank you. So I would like to ask Commissioner Bonzo if he'd like to speak on this. He's actually the one that had the idea to bring this forward, so I thank him. This is an excellent way that we can band together. Go ahead, Commissioner Bonzo.
Thank you, Mayor Smith. Yeah, I actually had a constituent, a city resident, reach out to me probably less than a week ago, actually, with this idea. She had seen Troy, Michigan, and one other community in Oakland County downstate doing something similar around the same time in the day, and thought it would be a cool idea for the city of Marquette. I thought it was a great way to promote neighborliness and make sure people are checking in on one another, and also promote a little bit of socialization within the confines of social distancing, and help with some of the loneliness that a lot of people, I'm sure, are feeling, and isolation that a lot of people, I'm sure, are feeling right now. And after doing a little more research, I talked to the mayor, and I appreciate you supporting the idea. And I'm excited to see this happening. I think it'll be a cool thing for our community, and who knows, maybe it'll turn into a little tradition here in Marquette.
Thank you, Commissioner Bonzo. Commissioner Stonehouse, any comments?
No comments, Your Honor. I think Commissioner Bonzel did a great job of covering it.
Great. Anyone else? I just wanted to add that I think anything we can do to encourage appropriate social activities during this difficult time can be helpful for mental health. I know that's an issue for a lot of our community members. So I'm looking forward to seeing my neighbors out tomorrow evening, and I hope the rest of you are able to participate as well from your driveway safely, social distancing, 6 feet apart. So hearing no further discussion on the item, all in favor, please say yes.
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 Any opposed, say no. Motion passes 6-0. Moving on to new business, item number 5, adopt procedure to fill vacancy on the City Commission. City Clerk, could we please have the background?
Thank you, Mayor. A City Commission vacancy was created on March 16th following the resignation of Commissioner Andrew Lorenzer. Under the provisions of the Marquette City Charter, the City Commission had 60 days in which to fill a vacancy via appointment. As the commission made similar appointments for vacancies created in late 2017 and early 2018, staff is recommending the board follow the process established at that time. In the process utilized previously, applications were made available both online at the city's website and in person at the city clerk's office, and a time frame was established for interested parties to return completed applications. Following the application deadline, completed applications and related materials were disseminated to the City Commission for review. At a subsequent meeting, the commission then provided applicants an opportunity to speak and made an appointment to fill the vacancy. Due to the cautionary public health measures recently implemented by the governor, staff does not recommend making the application materials available for over-the-counter pickup. In order to be appointed, an individual must meet all eligibility requirements stipulated by the city charter. Fiscal effect, none by this action. Recommendation, direct the city clerk to make City Commission application forms available online and by mail, and to accept applications from interested parties until 4 p.m. on Thursday, April 9th, 2020, and to then proceed with the appointment of a new city commissioner at the April 13th regular meeting. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have a motion? Commissioner Bonzo.
Thank you. I move that we direct the city clerk to make city commission application forms available online and by mail, and to accept applications from interested parties until 4 p.m. on Thursday, April 9th, 2020, and to then proceed with the appointment of a new city commissioner at the April 13th regular meeting.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have a second? Commissioner Schlegel.
Second motion.
Thank you. Commissioner Bonzo, any comments?
None other than I'm excited to see who applies and looking forward to this process.
Thank you. Commissioner Schlegel, any comments?
None at this time.
Anyone else for comment? Mayor Pro Tem Hill.
Did I miss the application itself? I'm not familiar with it, and so it would help to understand what I'm not entirely sure what I'm voting on if I have, and I'm sorry, I'm just realizing, like, I thought they were attached here and I don't see them. It says no attachments available in the agenda packet. Could somebody review what questions we're going to ask?
Sure, just give us a moment, and I'm wondering if we might even be able to pull that up on the screen.
I need just a minute.
Yep, that's fine. We'll just take a brief
Okay,
recess
that
here.
Yeah.
While we do that, does anyone else have a comment? And we'll get back to that one, Mayor Pro Tem. Anyone else have a comment or a question? Go ahead, Commissioner Stonehouse.
Well, Your Honor, having gone through two of these, the one in 2017 and the one in 2018, I can assure the commission that it's logical, it's viable. I think, as you could speak from your experience, it was very insightful and worked extraordinarily well. So I look forward for the opportunity to, again, well, no, you really don't. You don't want to replace a commissioner for any reason. But certainly, given the circumstances that we have to do it, it is a good and fair system to use that I think the entire commission will be pleased with. And I think they will be very proud of when it's finished.
I agree. Thank you, Commissioner Stonehouse. And I just want to add, as you said, it's remarkable that we've had to fill this now 3 times in the last 3 years with some type of a process. I do stand by the process that was created by former Mayor Tom Baldini, and I look forward to finding a capable commissioner to join us on the commission. So at this point, I stand by the appointment process personally. I was appointed in 2017 and then elected subsequently in 2018, and Commissioner Schlegel was appointed in 2018. So at this point, it seems to be working out all right. We continue on with that process and hope that we're not having to use this process moving forward. But this is what, the deck that we've been dealt, the hand we've been dealt. Go ahead, Commissioner Schlegel.
Thank you. I really don't know, Jen, if there's any particular question involved, quite honestly. The applicants would be able to write a letter in that I think what is it, 500 words or less or something along those lines. And then basically it comes down to I'm not going to say it's so much of an interview process as it is more along the lines of public comment, where you get the opportunity to have 3 minutes to stand up and basically plead your case as to, why you think that you're qualified for the position. Some of the things about your background that might influence us to think that one candidate is, gonna fill the position maybe a little bit more thoroughly than another. It's really no different than having the person knock on your door and try and sell themselves to you for 3 minutes and see what happens with the candidates. So I personally don't remember any specific questions. I just came prepared with what I was passionate about, the things that I'd done in the past, and some of the major topics that I find are paramount in my opinion, I guess, more than anything, that City of Marquette circles around. So pretty straightforward. It's not so much a where'd you go to school and what did you what kind of work history or anything like that. It's up to the person to sell themselves on it. So.
And it looks like we've got the application packet coming up here. As someone who did apply myself, I remember having to fill in things such as, are you a registered voter in the city of Marquette?
Right.
Have you lived here for at least a year? Do you have any prior experience on any city commission or boards? Which
Very similar to an advisory role.
Yeah, so they're similar to the applications we get for the other committees, but this one is obviously a little different. So we've got them up here, and I can read them out loud in case anyone can't see them. Are you a registered voter in the city of Marquette? Have you been a city resident for at least 12 months? Are you currently in default to the city of Marquette? Are you related to any elected city commissioner, including by marriage? Do you have any pending litigation against the city? Are you currently serving or have you served on any city board or committee? Please describe your education and credentials. What are your professional activities that relate to the City Commission? What community activities are you involved in that relate to the City Commission? What talents or experience would you bring to the City Commission? Any other comments or information you wish to provide to the Mayor and City Commissioners? And please provide a statement on why you are interested in serving on the City Commission. And then there's an option to do uploads. And from my experience, folks uploaded either a resume and or a cover letter. So does that answer your question, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I just want to be transparent about what we're voting on. And could you also discuss, given these extraordinary circumstances where we're having to meet virtually, the measures that we would use to vote when the selection is made, which is going to be at I believe we will select at the April 13th meeting. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
That'll be our next meeting in 2 weeks. So we've had quite a bit of discussion on this, and at this point, the going theory is that each commissioner would email the city clerk round one and then their candidate that they vote for, and then as many rounds as they take. So we may need to each have more than one device. We are working out the kinks on that, so it may be an email, it may be a chat, it may be a text message, but whatever we do will be completely FOIAble, open to the public, but we want to make sure that we have that ballot process preserved during the actual voting. After the fact, that's all public, who voted for who in which round. At this point, again, we're thinking email, but I just want to leave room in case we find a better method.
Thank you. That's also very helpful for the public to understand, given this process where we aren't going to be able to take it to a public vote, that it's understood what the process is going to be. So thank you. I am comfortable at this point and have no further questions.
And our city manager here would like to make a comment.
Just one additional comment. We're also working on a way for each candidate to be allowed 3 minutes to speak virtually at the next meeting. It may be a summary of what they've written, or it may just be something completely different, but we're working on a way to do that meets the distancing guidelines, as well as gives them an opportunity to let you listen to what they have to say.
Thank you, City Manager. That's great. All right. So, any further discussion, Commissioner Stonehouse?
Yes, Your Honor. Can you let folks know the deadline that we're looking at? Or did I miss that?
Yes. It was in the motion, but I can repeat it. It is on Thursday, April 9th at 4 p.m. packets would be due. And again, those are available either to submit online, or you can have a packet mailed to you and you can mail it back to City Hall by that deadline.
And the commissioners will then have.
So they wouldn't be able to drop it off in person. It would have to be mailed.
Right. And then the commissioners will have from then the receipt of the packets, if you will, from the applicants until our meeting on Monday.
Correct. That is the Thursday before the Good Friday holiday, so that gives staff about an hour to get it all together out to the commission so that we have a few days to review before our meeting on Monday.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Commissioner Bonsall.
Thank you. I just pulled up the city charter here, and under eligibility for elective office, it says no person shall hold any elective office of the city unless the person has been a qualified and registered elector of the city for at least 1 year. So I'm not sure if this is in order, but I would just request that the language in the application form that says, have you been a city resident for 12 months, perhaps be amended before the form is sent out to say a city resident and registered voter in the city of Marquette.
In there,
Sean is telling us that it's in there.
Is it?
I think it says both.
I'm thinking maybe it was two separate questions, or
yeah.
are you a registered?
I see, it's two separate questions.
It's there.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion, commissioners? I'm not able to see hands. Okay, go ahead. Now I can see hands. Any further discussion? Okay. Seeing none. All in favor of the motion made by Commissioner Bonsall, go ahead and say yes.
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 All opposed, please say no. Motion passes 6-0. New business item number 6, Mayor Pro Tem travel reimbursement. City Clerk, could we please have the background?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Pro Tem Jen Hill traveled to the Climate Action Summit in Ann Arbor, Michigan, March 11th and 12th, 2020, and has submitted a travel reimbursement in the amount of $578.85. Fiscal effect, total travel costs are $578.85. Adequate funds are available within the fiscal year 2020 City Commission travel budget. Recommendation, approve travel reimbursement for Mayor Pro Tem Hill in the amount of $578.85 for the Climate Action Summit. Alternatives as determined by the Commission.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have a motion? Commissioner Stonehouse.
Your Honor, I motion to reimburse the Mayor Pro Tem as stipulated.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Commissioner Frazier.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? Commissioner Schlegel.
Just curious, I realize mileage adds up in a hurry, but the event actually didn't take place, did it? Because of the coronavirus?
Yeah, I called them from Harvey and asked them, do I go north or south? And they told me to come. And
Yeah.
5 hours later, it was canceled.
Yeah, I know a lot of stuff got jostled around that
Yeah.
specific
So,
weekend.
and the hotel refused to refund the hotel night. Would not give us the money back.
That's where my question was. I was curious if it didn't happen. You know, there must have been some sort of stipulation in there. So I get it. Thank you.
I tried. City staff tried. The hotel would not give us the money back.
Unfortunate circumstance. Thanks for the explanation. But as was stated, Mayor Pro Tem Hill was already down there and had intended on going to that conference on behalf of the city. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say yes. And just one note before we vote, Mayor Pro Tem Hill has to abstain as this is on her own reimbursement. So all in favor, please say yes.
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 All opposed, please say no. All abstain, please
I
say.
abstain.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-0. Moving on to new business item number 7, notice of intent resolution fiscal year 20 capital improvement bonds. City Clerk, could we please have the background?
Thank you, Mayor. In order to start the process of issuing capital improvement bonds, For fiscal year 20 projects, a resolution must be approved that will authorize a notice of intent to be published. The notice of intent serves as a 45-day referendum notice in accordance with Public Act 34. This Public Act states that if 10% of the registered electors of the city file a referendum petition within 45 days of publication of the notice, then the bonds cannot be issued without voter approval. The resolution also authorizes the city to reimburse itself for expenditures made prior to the actual issuance of the bonds. This language is needed in order to comply with federal tax laws for tax-exempt bonds. Projects proposed to be financed with this bond issue are attached. These are projects that have been included in the fiscal year 2020 budget as approved. A final amount tally will be presented before the bonds are issued. Fiscal effect: a debt service schedule will be produced when the bonds are issued. Recommendation: approve a notice of intent resolution to issue and sell general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $4 million for capital improvements, and authorize the city clerk to sign the resolution. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have a motion? Anyone?
Yeah, I can do it.
Commissioner Schlegel.
Forgive me, you know me and multitasking.
I don't have the page number in front of me, or I'd give it to you.
I got it here. I would make the motion to approve notice of intent, or a notice of intent resolution to issue and sell general obligation bonds in the amount not to exceed $4 million for capital improvements, and authorize the city clerk to sign the resolution.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have a second? Commissioner Stonehouse.
I second the motion, Your Honor.
Thank you. Commissioner Schlegel, any comments?
None, thank you.
Commissioner Stonehouse, any comments?
No comment.
Anyone else? Mayor Pro Tem Hale, go ahead.
I have a process question. Looking at the list, it's there's not that many. It's Lakeshore Boulevard relocation, bridge rehabilitation, Marquette Drive upgrade, Lakeview Drive upgrade, Union Street upgrade, the basic road maintenance through the SIMP, replacing the dasher board in Lakeview Arena, and the parking lot paving in Mattson Park. Is all the other funding in place for these projects, or are any of these contingent on other funding? And what is the case if the contingent funding doesn't come through?
I'm going to call on our CFO, Gary, here. Answer that question. I could do the best he can anyway.
Yeah. So the big one would be Lakeshore Boulevard. That one's heavily dependent upon grant money. We think we're far enough along in the approval process that we are going to get the money. Right offhand, I'm not aware of any other grant type situations. So that's that part of the question. I just want to make sure that it's understood. So we have roughly $5.5 million in projects. It's actually going to be two separate bond issues that we're going to do. We're able to take the major and the local street portion and issue those through Michigan Transportation Fund bonds, which don't require a resolution at this time. That resolution will come later. So I just want people to understand that this motion is not to exceed $4 million. There'll be another bond issue which covers the rest of that. So I just wanted, in case anybody is wondering, why are you doing $5.5 million in projects and only $4 million in bonds? And the $5.5 million is due to our policy. We try not to issue more in new debt than we pay off in principal each year. Right now, that's projected to be right around $5.5 million.
Mayor Pro Tem Hill, does that answer your question?
When is the final drop dead date on the project that's contingent on the grant funds? Or is there another process that would, I just would like to understand how that works.
Well, there's two grants. for Lakeshore Boulevard. We've already been awarded the wildlife grant for 2.7 million, I believe it was, or 2.5, with the $3 million match that's in this bond issue. We're awaiting confirmation on the FEMA grant, which is another $2.5 million, which we've been assured we will be awarded as soon as the public notice period ends in about 25 days, which will require an additional match of about $635,000, which has yet to be approved. I'm guessing that at that time, once we receive affirmation that confirmation that we've received the grant, we'll come back to you with some idea, something to consider as far as making that match through our budget. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know it's been a long road and that folks are hoping that this all comes through, but with so many other things uncertain, I'm just very aware of money, the amount of money that we're having to spend on health right now is so significant that I just, if we could keep us well apprised of what's going on with this, that'd be really helpful.
I will do that.
Any other commissioners with a comment or question? Commissioner Bonzo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I had two questions for the city manager and for Gary. So the city has quite a bit of debt already. What will the fiscal effect of these bonds be for the city of Marquette? How long will it take us to pay them off? Just as a rough estimate, if you have one.
Yeah, right now we're planning on a 10-year bond issue. And as you probably know, the market's really squirrely. Depends which minute of the day you're looking at it. But just recently, the Federal Reserve has juiced the economy extremely well. So we're thinking that it's stabilized the markets. So we're thinking that's why we're trying to go ahead and do this now rather than wait, so that we can get more favorable interest terms. So with the issuance of this bond, it should have a bottom line zero impact by the end of the year, because we will have paid off, in principle, what we're going to issue in new debt. And then this would be a new 10-year debt at hopefully a very low interest rate.
Thank you. That's really good to know. The other question that I had, so I see in this project schedule that we have for fiscal 2020, we have almost $1 million coming out of the major street fund for the Lakeshore Boulevard relocation. I'm just curious, given that we're issuing bonds to fund this project, what impact, if any, will that allocation of funding from the major street fund have on road maintenance for the rest of the city this year?
It'll have no impact. That's really a separate issue. So the way it's designed, issuing the MTF bonds, the Michigan Transportation Fund bonds, will have no impact on the money we get for Act 51, and it will have no impact on the maintenance that we're able to do in other areas.
Good, thanks. Just wanted to make sure. Appreciate it, Gary.
You're welcome.
Any additional comments or questions? Mayor Pro Tem Hill.
It was my understanding that several other projects were bumped down the line in order to make Lakeshore Boulevard happen in this year. I'm confused now as to the statement that it's going to have no impact to the streets budget when we did the review last year, it meant that other projects fell down the line. I understand I'm not understanding what's going on.
Yeah, I was just speaking to the maintenance portion of the budget. You are correct. Some projects had to be delayed to future years on the capital outlay side, but on the maintenance side, there will be no impact.
This is the SIMP, correct?
Correct.
So we were talking just about that SIMP line item, Pro Tem? So overall, you are correct. Other projects have been bumped down to future years because of Lakeshore Boulevard.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments from the commission? Seeing none. City Clerk, could we please have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Bonzal,
Yes.
Commissioner Frazier,
Yes.
Commissioner Schlegel,
Yes.
Commissioner Stonehouse,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hill,
Yes.
and Mayor Smith.
Yes. Motion passes 6-0. Moving on to new business item number 8, Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund Development Grant Application. City Clerk, could we please have the background?
Thank you. At its November 28th, 2016 regular meeting, the City Commission voted to relocate efforts to create a universally accessible, inclusive playground from Presque Isle Park to Mattson Park. The existing infrastructure at Kids Cove Playground made any project more highly focused on play equipment, and the playground has been determined to be at the end of its useful life. At its January 28th, 2019 regular meeting, the City Commission adopted the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. This plan prioritizes all accessibility projects within the park system and lists the Mattson Park Universally Accessible Playground as a high priority. At the March 25th, 2019 regular commission meeting, a resolution of support was adopted for a 2019 grant application. This application, while very competitive, was not selected for funding. Staff is seeking to resubmit the grant application on April 1st, 2020, with minor changes that we feel, combined with some grant program changes, should make the project more competitive. The cost of replacing Kids Cove with a universally accessible playground is estimated to be $600,000.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have a motion? Commissioner Stonehouse.
Your Honor, I motion to adopt the resolution and support the application for the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund Development Grant to construct a universally accessible, inclusive playground at Mattson Park.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Commissioner Bonzal.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. You're a little, I wasn't able to hear you very well.
I will second that motion.
Is there any audio?
Yeah, now there is.
Yeah, I don't know, Fred.
Are you all able to hear me? We just had to
Yeah, I can
switch
hear
the
you.
audio to the computer audio. Can I get a thumbs up?
Absolutely, I have you now.
All right, great. Thank you very much. So Commissioner Bonzal, right? Any comments? I'm just making sure who made the motion. Thank you.
Well, I think Commissioner Stonehouse made the motion and I seconded.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Commissioner Stonehouse, any comments?
It's a great project. It's long overdue. It's one that the citizens are really going to love, and I look forward to seeing its completion. Happy to vote for it and support it. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Commissioner Bonzal, any comments?
Thank you. Yeah, I was really excited to see that we're reapplying for this. This is something that we were working on when I was serving on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board for quite some time. And was disappointed to see that our grant application wasn't accepted the last time, but I'm really confident that it will be this time. And I think this will be a fantastic asset for the community. And also, I think that it's so important that we're focusing on universal accessibility. And I also hope that perhaps we could have a community build like we did for the current playground. I think that would be a great way for the community to come together and unite around this this project.
Thank you, Commissioner Bonzal. And I was a part of that community build back in the 90s, and I agree that would be great. Commissioner Frazier.
I think it's a great idea. I was back in my PIPAC days. We came up with the idea for the playground. Originally at Presque Isle, I got moved to Lower Harbor. And one of my relatives who is handicapped came with the idea to make it universal accessible. I'm glad to see he's following through with it.
Great. Any other commissioners with comments on this one? I just wanted to add that this is something that's definitely been on my radar to try to get Lower Harbor Mattson Park redone at some point here. And I get a lot of pressure from folks I see on a regular basis asking when this is going to be redone because kids are getting splinters and things are broken, and looking forward to it being an accessible playground in our area, which is great for
folks with disabilities, and also for younger children who can't play on the big, tall, towers. So, all right, no further discussion. City Clerk, could we please have a roll call vote?
Hey, I'm back. Commissioner Bonzal,
Yes.
Commissioner Frazier,
Yes.
Commissioner Schlegel,
Yes.
Commissioner Stonehouse,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Hill,
Yes.
and Mayor Smith.
Yes. Motion passes 6-0. Brings us to public comment. Public comments may not exceed 3 minutes per person. Please clearly state your name and physical address unless you've already stated your address during the meeting. And I would like to start with any written public comments. City Clerk, if you could go ahead with those.
Thank you, Mayor. I have just 1 second here. I have just one comment. This time it is Frank Jeff Verito, and reads as follows. For years, the manager's been asked to notate on our agendas when students will sit behind the dais. We have a right to know whom we're addressing. Clearly, the manager doesn't feel like it, as is the case with his recurrent lack of site depictions and close-up shots of our members for the record. He'll be disappointed to hear that many of my comments applied to our youth anyway. What's sad is hearing them share some of the concerns our residents have spoken up for years, ones this negligent board refused to address. Recycling updates, mental health, and Sunday library hours. Frightening was the unsuspecting student who said, quote, "Where do people look for guidance?" You, she said, meaning from our board members. For the love of our youth, please do not seek guidance from this board. That's not to say some members can't offer sound advice, but I wouldn't trust this board as a whole to lead our youth down a healthy path. Just look at our beach. Even weed dealers that I encountered over decades were more concerned that people got what they bargained for than some bags of dope this board has tried to sell us. Ms. Hill's heart is in the right place. Mr. Schlegel advises well on insulation, and Mr. Stonehouse knows Lake Superior history, but none adequately heeded the warnings that our park was washing away. February 24th, $5.7 million was approved for the piers, a project most people fully favor. We realized the grant money had to go toward this. Still, I asked management to negotiate with the DNR to reallocate the funds for the Tombolo because the piers can wait. Our prized beach cannot. The Corps of Engineers is taking their sweet time to determine if they're culpable while this board procrastinates on a long-term solution. February 24th, Mr. Stonehouse misspoke when he said it's our duty to vote. It's our privilege, right, and prerogative, not our duty. We're not robots, especially the people of Marquette, where there isn't a normal pea in the pod. That's why I love living here. Mr. Stonehouse referred to himself as, quote, the man from the East. 2 men from the East now serve on this board. We must treat everyone as an individual, and I'm not judgmental, but if any member fits a negative stereotype, I'll exploit it to the max. Let us keep the Eastern mentality out east, the Marco Island mentality in Florida, and the Marquette mentality here. Let's cut the hypocrisy too. Mr. Frazier called Mr. Bonzal Evan 2 meetings after making a stink about us using first names. Even my uses of Ms. and Mr. Mr. Frazier will be treated like everyone else, even if his name is Guggenheim. Please rid us of the arrogance we've tried to get away from, as well as members who won't admit their mistakes, including our lost parkland, their disregard of public participation, and the theft of agenda comment. And those are all the written comments.
Sean, do we have anyone else waiting in the queue to give public comment this evening? Seeing none, public comment is now closed. Brings us to comments from the commission. I'm going to start with Mayor Pro Tem Hill. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good job, everybody. I think we worked on my end very well to have the gallery view of everyone here. I can actually see your face, which I can't when we're all sitting on the dais. And again, it is extraordinary time when so many are being asked to sacrifice. And thanks to the frontline workers, whether they be in the grocery store, the hospital, the folks that are caring for others in group and institutional living situations. We are blessed so far to have few impacts, and that as we stay at home and have a very uncertain future, but we are each of us in staying home is making a huge difference, and I greatly thank you. And I do plan to go out on into my driveway at 6:30 tomorrow and say hello to my neighbors. And I think we will continue to do all we can to help communicate the information. I've certainly been trying to get the word out on things like unemployment, small business assistance opportunities on Facebook and somewhat on Instagram. But please feel free to contact me. Oh, and then the last thing I'm going to say is the census is due on April 1. That's our count day in the every 10 years in the Constitution. It is absolutely essential, especially at this time, that every single person fill out the census. And you can get a card. You should have gotten a card in the mail, but then there's also the ability to do it online. Please, please, please fill out the census. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Frazier, comments this evening?
All good meeting, good process of going virtual. Cars the playground was brought to my attention many years ago that a lot of things in the playground could not be fixed because my daughter used to play it all the time. Could it be fixed because they're technically out of date, and so when the new playground is installed, everything will be good to go.
Thank you. Commissioner Schlegel, comments this evening?
Thank you. Welcome back, Mayor. I'm glad to hear everything went well, and look forward to meeting the new addition at some point in time. I just want to bring up the fact that there is an amazing amount of great, I just can't, I don't know where to begin, I guess. You know, on social media right now, if you go on, there's a number of groups that are helping out. And one of those is a group called Marquette Makers United. And these are a group of people that all have 3D printers, access to certain equipment that is making the new shields and face masks. I believe that there's a request basically for up to 1,000. I've been the one that's been running them around from the people that would leave them on their porch, and I'd go pick them up and bring them to another place that would accept them and put them together, and then they would be they're being stockpiled right now. It's a great endeavor that these people are doing for personal protective equipment for our hospitals in the UP. It's taken off and is being adopted downstate, down in many different communities throughout the U.S. right now, and we've got a small hub of people here that have been driving that project, and it's just I can't wait to share more about it as things move along in the future. There's also another group of sewers that are making masks. I can't tell you how many they've made right now. I think it's over 1,000. They're making filter covers for respirators. They're making hats and even gowns. I'm so proud of these people and what they're doing for our community. And a friend of mine was at the Social Security office here in town. They had 300 of the high quality face masks, 320 that were donated to the hospital. They said, go ahead and get these to the people on the front lines. Let's get this started. So my challenge here is to basically say, if you have personal protective equipment that can be utilized, and let's pray that we don't need it to the nth degree, or that we can ship it off to somebody else. But if you have stuff like that, that's either in your business that you can part with, a group that you're part of, however it's going to be, I'd be happy to drive over and pick it up from you, and then make sure that it gets to the right people so that it can be eventually doled out to the community on the front lines. You hear stuff on the news about what their impressions are of things going on in our hospital. I certainly know people that work there, and I'm hearing a completely different story. They're busting their butts. They're exhausted. That may be the case, but they're there to take care of our neighbors. Again, I keep going back to it. Youpers taking care of Youpers. I mean, you can't dull the spirit in these people. My wife alone, being a nurse, all I can say is, it's just a proud moment to be a part of this, as far as, seeing how hard these people are working to take care of everybody else. So keep that up. Hopefully this next 30 days goes quick. I'm getting a little bit antsy myself. And I just hope that, check on your neighbors, make sure that if anybody needs anything, you can do your best for them. Again, we're here to help if we can, and just do what's right, and we'll get through this together. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Schlegel. Commissioner Stonehouse.
A couple things, Your Honor. Let me shift away from the coronavirus issue for a moment, just by relating it to an old Army story. One thing soldiers are always taught, and is still as true today, is something called the interval. And the interval is the distance between you and the next soldier. So when you're when you're moving on a battlefield, when you're moving in a hostile situation, if one explosive goes off, it doesn't kill 20 or 30 men. It might only kill 2 or 3, because you've got that separation between you. And that really is the same thing with social distance. It's just a more polite way of saying it. So for all the vets out there, I want you to think about when the drill sergeant taught you about keeping interval, and how that directly transfers to what we should be doing today with social interval. It really is, I think, critically important to all of us. Secondly, keep your spirits up. I mean, we're looking at another 30 days, and it gets old, and we get a little tired, and we get a little cranky, but we've got to keep the spirit up, because that's what's going to carry us through. This has been an interesting evening. It's the first time we've ever gone virtual, first time we've ever used the technology. And it certainly is remarkable for what we can do with it, and also remarkable for some of the issues that you have as you do it, because it's certainly not as effective as being in a room where you can look people in the eye and things that we're used to. But I would suggest to the commission that once we get out of this, where it no longer is necessary to meet virtually, that we make a point of scheduling throughout the year at least a couple of instances where where the meeting is no longer held in the chamber, but is held remotely as we're doing tonight. Because I think there's a skill set that develops both from the staff support side and from our side to make this as effective as we can. And the only way you get there is by trying it, doing it, and a little bit of rehearsal. That's going to require our attorney to figure out how we have to change the city charter to allow us to meet remotely, because we're doing this right now under the umbrella of the governor of Michigan. She can withdraw that, and I suspect would, once this emergency is over. So we need to figure out as a commission how we can do what we're doing now under our charter and still be legal. That, I think, becomes the charge for us as we go forward. But thanks to everybody for kind of bending with this and making it all work. And Your Honor, thank you for the opportunity to make my comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Stonehouse. Commissioner Bonsall. And you're on mute, so go ahead and unmute yourself before you.
Thank you. First, I just want to thank you, Mayor Smith, for calling a virtual meeting tonight. Of course, the recent executive order by the governor gave us that option, and in my view, I think it was the right thing to do. It would have been irresponsible to hold a physical meeting. And I also want to thank Commissioner Stonehouse for offering a motion to give us a procedure moving forward on how to handle situations like this. I think that we've done an excellent job of maintaining transparency and complying with both the letter and the spirit of the Open Meetings Act and the governor's executive order. And I think a virtual meeting tonight was the right call. And overall, I think it went quite smoothly. Over the past couple of weeks, we've also taken many other measures to promote public health and help city residents and businesses who are struggling financially during these times. We've waived utility shutoffs and late payment fees, waived surcharges for paying bills online or over the phone. And we're also restoring water service to residents who've had their water shut off due to non-payment in compliance with an executive order from the governor. We've reduced staffing levels to provide essential services only, closed city buildings to the public. And we've also been providing additional paid sick leave to city employees if they need to use more than they have in their banks, and tracking the paid leave that's been used, so we can hopefully reimburse city employees at a later date for that time if it's related to the coronavirus emergency. And finally, in response to a surge in the number of homeless individuals seeking shelter and services, as well as to comply with social distancing, we've partnered with Room at the Inn to relocate the emergency homeless shelter at the Warming Center to Lakeview Arena temporarily. I just want to note that I was very pleased to see the governor's executive order recently, temporarily prohibiting evictions of renters and mobile homeowners if they are unable to make rent payments on time during these difficult times. And I just want to thank all of our first responders who are really on the front lines of this crisis. You know, we get to sit here and have our virtual meeting, and many of us get to work from home. But our police, our firefighters, EMTs, nurses, medical technicians, physicians, many service sector workers are continuing to work during this difficult and uncertain time. And we need to continue doing everything that we can as a community and as a commission to support them and help them do their jobs while staying as safe as possible. And finally, I just want to encourage city residents who might be watching to consider doing a few things. First, if you're able, please donate any food or toiletries that you can spare to the new emergency homeless shelter at Lakeview Arena. Room at the Inn is urgently in need of supplies to keep serving our homeless residents, and I'm sure they would really appreciate any donations. Second, please participate in the Marquette Moment each night at, I believe it's at 6:30, starting tomorrow. I think this is a great initiative for the community, and hopefully will raise everybody's spirits a little bit, as well as encourage people to check in on one another and make sure they're all okay. Third, please, as Commissioner Hill noted, or as Mayor Pro Tem Hill noted, please fill out the census by April 1st. You can go to my2020census.gov to do that, and you also should have received something in the mail. And finally, please, if you are at all interested, consider applying for appointment or filing as a candidate for the City Commission. As was noted earlier in tonight's meeting, the application to fill Mr. Lorenzer's seat on the commission will be available on the city website as well as from the city clerk starting tomorrow, March 31st, and will be due by 4 p.m. on April 9th. And also starting today, signature sheets and other paperwork have been made available by the city clerk. Now you'll have to call or email the city clerk to receive them. There will be 3 seats open on the commission this year and 2 seats open on the Board of Light and Power. And the deadline to file at least 25 valid signatures or a $100 filing fee, which might be more appropriate at this time, as well as the related paperwork with the city clerk, is 4 p.m. on April 21st. So I would just encourage any city residents to please reach out to me if you're interested in applying or running for a seat on the commission. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about what it's like to run for local office and what it's like to serve on the commission. So please consider doing those things, and thank you.
Thank you. I think the commission has covered pretty much any talking point I was about to bring up tonight, so I won't beat a dead horse. I do want to say that I'm concerned about the lasting impact that the COVID-19 will have on our local community and on our local economy. One thing that wasn't said is that there's a huge need to donate blood right now, and the UP Regional Blood Center is still open and available to take those donations. So if you're healthy and available, that is considered an essential service. So go ahead and do that if you're able to. And please continue to reach out to myself or any other commissioner with any concerns during this troubling time, and we'll do our best to help you find whatever resource you might need. I have been recording a daily video update during this crisis, and I'm posting that on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. If you'd like to follow along, you can go ahead and do that. And I think that concludes my comments for the evening. I just wanted to see if City Manager had any comments.
Thank you. Just briefly, thank you, commissioners, for your continued support. Even though we are going through this coronavirus lockdown, we still have business to do and things to take care of here. So we don't want to get too far behind, and we don't plan on doing that. Just for the community, we have staff working at workforce distancing levels. All of our services are running smoothly. Water, sewer, our garbage collection should remain consistent. Our public works people are working, so we will be able to provide what services we can. The last thing I wanted just to add was that normally I would have open office hours a week from Wednesday, public library. However, I will be canceling those hours for this month. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice job on the virtual meeting. Wanted to give thank you to Sean Hobbins for organizing. I know it was no easy task. And thank you to commissioners and to the public for your patience with this format as we are abiding by the Stay Home, Stay Safe initiative. At this point, we are adjourned at 7:54 p.m. Thank you.